So this next page is about rewards. I'm not going to read this to you, but I do urge you all to understand why people support a cause. You may already resonate with most of these or recognize them. It is important to recognize, it's so important to recognize people who support your program, whether it's a sponsor or a donor or a volunteer. Nothing goes further than thank you, and people like to be thanked. And oftentimes people don't like to be thanked publicly. They want to just remain anonymous, so it's a key thing for you to identify that up front. Is it okay if we thank you this Sunday in service? Are you all right with that? Can we put your name and what you've done in the newsletter? Can we add it to our website? If they say yes, then absolutely. You know, thank them as many times as you think is appropriate. Any major gifts require much more than that, and if you get to that point, contact me and I'll walk you through the steps on what to do if you have a major gift come in. And for a lot of people, a major gift, it varies what that number is. So if you're not sure, you know, Bonnie or Donna can put you in touch with me and we can talk through what's appropriate for that.
Megan, isn't it also very important to say thank you right away?
Yes, absolutely, within 24 hours.
Either a verbal or a written or something. Don't let it hang out there because it means less and less as time goes on.
Absolutely. So you want to make sure that you're thanking people within a 24-hour period of time for their support, whether it's financial or other. It can be a phone call. It can be an email. It should be a handwritten letter always. So if you're not currently prepared for that, you always want to have a stack of blank note cards. They don't have to have anything significant with the faith or the church or anything on it, just something that's nice. And just be able to write a quick thank you. That means more than anything to anybody. How many of you get thank you notes in the mail?
Snail mail.
Yeah, snail mail, right? And how does it make you feel when you get that?
And how does it make you feel when you don't get it?
Right, exactly. So the good goes a good distance, the bad goes even a further distance, right? It makes you feel, wow, I did all that work and it wasn't appreciated.
It doesn't have to be long. Thank you so much for blah, 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 and then stick it in the envelope and send it.
Right.
You know?
And the other thing is, I don't know if you all do mailings throughout the year, but if you do, make sure that your vestry gets involved and they write a personal note to people that they know. Post it on a sticky note or on a card or something on the letter that goes out, whether it's a solicitation to attend an event or a fundraising opportunity. You know, you're doing a mailing asking for like an organization I know that just turned 30 years this year. $30 for 30 years. So they sent that out 30 for 30. So it's really important that your relationships that are built throughout the parish are utilized and leveraged in every way possible. Okay, so
Piece of trivia. I once read that Princess Diana had a thank you note written out and ready to go before she attended the event, and then was mailed immediately.
right. So when
Just a point of information.
Yeah, when I was doing hardcore business, the minute I would hang up the phone with a client or anything like that, I had them right in my desk and I had stamps ready to go. I would just write it and would go in the same day mail. And if it was a local person, they would get it the next day. And they would let me know, gosh, that was so nice of you. I never get thank you notes like that. You know, people email. Email is so impersonal. A phone call is nice, but a thank you note goes much longer. It's not evasive like a phone call. It doesn't have to take, you know, it's 30 seconds. Thank you so much. What you did for us was really meaningful. And going one step further, if you get the thank you note written by the people who are benefiting from the program, children, the aging, those in need, it's, you know, let's say that your local business comes to do a day of service and they're working with your kids or they're feeding your people who come through for the food pantry. Get a few of those people to write a thank you note on a big poster or something like that and then mail that off. That's so meaningful. People think, God, that was so nice. I can't wait to go back next year. Or what other events can we get involved with? It opens up doors beyond your imagination and it's the cost of a stamp. Okay, let's move on to the next page. Telling stories and what you communicate, followed by how you communicate, are the keys to success. People need to connect emotionally to your cause, as we've talked about throughout this entire program so far. They need to feel for those you serve and be compelled to take action because of that feeling, whether it's to volunteer, sponsor or give a donation. So I want you guys to list 2 stories you have about people that have directly benefited from your program and how it's changed their lives for the better. So if you could come up with one right now, and then just kind of like write a brief sentence for number 2 on what the second story is, so you can go back later and write that story out, because you're going to use these stories as you're communicating with your rector, your vestry, your volunteers, your key stakeholders within your parish. So you're going to need to have these like ready to go. So if you go with one full out, and then the second one just by title or however you can remember it, so you come back to it later. Does anybody have any questions about this particular exercise? Are you struggling to come up with stories, or do you have them already done? Don't everybody speak at once. You ready to say?
Well, I was just
Struggling, but having one.
Okay, one's better than nothing.
So, since at my church, since we haven't really started a program, I don't have one to write for
Okay.
the church, but I'm actually going to hit up Bonnie for Episcopal Charities.
That's fine.
We have lots of
They
stories.
have lots of stories.
Right.
We request them on our applications.
Yeah.
Vignettes and CDs of pictures of people in their programs and stories about them. So we continue to retell those to our potential donors.
You know, the important thing is that you have a story to tell. It doesn't, if you don't have one directly related to your program, it's great to borrow one from a similar program, because you're all within the Episcopal Charities of South Florida program, so that's fine. And it won't take long, Cheryl, before you're up and running and you'll have your own stories to share immediately.
Yes.
The trick is to keep track of them, because you don't want to retell the same story all the time. And I'm sure that with what you're doing, that's why I was saying try to come up with 2 so you can kind of go back and forth with them, but try to keep, you know, finding what the stories are. And then the key thing is to make sure that the key people who are involved with your program, your vestry, your volunteers, the parents who are helping you with regards to creating awareness for what you're doing, or those who are impacted by it, know how to tell those stories. And so I talk about that below this exercise in here. How are you using these stories? Are they on your website? Are you telling them on your Facebook page? Like, we had an amazing weekend this weekend. We took 6 kids to the Special Olympics. Here's a picture of them with their medals that they won. This wouldn't happen without the support of the community. You know, things like that that people can go, oh my gosh, that's so fantastic, right? And so those are important ways. Have you used them when you're asking for donations? How many of you have gotten a letter from a major organization like Habitat for Humanity or American Red Cross telling you about Oscar, who lost his home in the, you know, earthquake in Japan, and he's living on the street, and, you know, it's because of the American Red Cross that he now has shelter and food and clothing, and he's now back in a program of education. Those are the types of stories that people want to read, you know? Yes?
I actually became a parent to Griffin, a sea turtle,
There you go.
because his story was so compelling.
Right.
Although he had an MRI that wasn't, he kept on, for months, I was wondering whatever happened with the MRI. So I don't know if there really was a Griffin, but the point is the story was brilliant.
Right.
And you gave money. That's what you gave
Of
money.
course I did. I became a
And the stories are always better when there's a photo attached to them, so they make a great direct mail campaign when you're asking for funds for whatever. If you're asking for restricted funds for a specific event, you know, we've got the back to school program coming up. Here's a photo of kids that were, you know, getting their backpacks last summer, and this is how many we impact, but start out with the name of a specific person and tell their story. Because people need to connect emotionally before they're going to write the check and stick it in the envelope to go back to you.
The Humane Societies and the Dogs for the Blind write wonderful stories.
They do.
And I'm always getting out my check.
Oh,
Right.
that one ASPCA commercial with the music. Oh, my God.
Oh.
Me too.
Yeah, I can't watch that one.
I can't do that one. Oh,
You know, even still, I was in an event, 6 weeks ago, and they, it's called the Handy Organization, and they support youth who are underprivileged, whether they come from homes of domestic violence or addiction of some sort. These kids are taken into this program, and they're given the opportunity to excel personally, socially, with education and whatnot, and they get scholarships to go on to university, and then they get job placement and all that stuff. So they had 4 of the kids that were benefactors of the program come and stand at the podium in front of this room of like 300 people and tell their story, and there wasn't a dry eye in the place. And I was, I bid on an orchid for $55 for my mom for Mother's Day, and then I got a thank you note in the mail, and I wrote another check for $25. I mean, how can you not support something that's so amazing, right? So it's all about how you can tell the story. If you're asked to speak at a community event, which oftentimes you may be, and if you haven't, there's great opportunities with your local Kiwanis clubs and other members. Like in Fort Lauderdale, they have the Fort Lauderdale Small Boat chapter member organization. This is a group of people who love to boat. They're not big yachters. They're little boats. They fish. They come to meetings in their T-shirts with, Isla Mirada Fish Company on it, and over sun exposed skin and shorts with their flip flops and whatever, but they are about 300 people strong, and every year they pick a nonprofit and they fundraise the entire year for that nonprofit. So do you have anything like that that exists in your local community? Are you in contact with them? If not, yeah, research, again, use your interns, grab volunteers and go, this is what I want you to do today. Take an hour and just jump online and Google and find out who's in the neighborhood that we can partner with, But Kiwanis is great because they too raise money and they give it back into the community. So they allow you to come to their meetings in the morning. It's like an 8 o'clock coffee meeting, and they'll give you 10, 15, 20 minutes to stand up and talk about what you do, who you serve, and how you support the community. And then they go, oh, that's great. Can we do an event with you? Absolutely. So again, you've got to cast the net, throw the net out there and see who's open to partnering with you. Collaboration is key. But it's always great to tell a story. You always want to start out telling a story. You don't want to just get up there and go, well, this is what we do and this is who we serve, because it's just, you're hitting them right here. You want to hit them right here and right here. Let's see. So, taking photos is also the key thing. Visual images are everything. People are immediately drawn to them. Words mean very little. If you put a photo in to whatever it is that you're doing, that's always a great way for people to connect immediately. So if you're not doing a lot of photography, you need to start. And I know a lot of you have smartphones, which are great for uploading to websites. But if you're going to print anything, you actually need to use a real camera with a 300 DPI or better. Because if you're using it for marketing material, whether it's a letter or an invitation or a brochure, you need the high resolution images. Because otherwise your little 72 DPI that comes off your iPhone or your other smartphone, it's not going to cut. Your printer's going to be really, really frustrated with you on that. Yep.
In some areas you have to be really careful, like in the backpack buggies, confidentiality is a really plus. The school knows who the kids are. We have no idea. We could not take pictures of them. So we trust the school to make the judgments. We give them the backpacks and they take care of it. And the other thing, too, is if you're going to take pictures, you've got to get permission from the people you took the pictures of to allow that picture to be used.
That's a great point.
You have to be
So
very careful.
what you might think about doing is when you're doing programs like that and the participants are not directly involved in your program, they're recipients through another organization, I would have some sort of sign-up paper saying here's who is going to get the backpack, here's their grade, their address, contact information, and then the parent signs off on a photo consent at the bottom so that everybody that's getting into it, you can't do that, you can't send that to the school.
No. We talked to the principal and the assistant principal, and that's as far as we go. Some of our people have gone there and had pictures taken with them,
Right.
but the kids have never shown. It's a really matter of confidentiality.
They come with their parents?
Pardon me?
Do they come with their parents?
No, they just take the things home. It's really a confidentiality issue, and you really can't do that. It just doesn't happen.
Well, so perhaps what you can do is ask when you're communicating with the principal or assistant principal, say that, capturing the images of the event are really important to you, and it helps you to communicate to people that support your program what you're doing. If there's a way they can send a letter home to the parents.
Well, actually, the principal and the vice principal wrote letters to the church that was so compelling that we got a lot more money. Remember that? That was a tremendous thing because they were sitting there crying when they found out that we were going to do this for them.
Wow.
Because it was it was just like, wow. You do this for the kids here?
Right.
And it was like, they just couldn't believe it. And when the food started coming and the backpacks started coming every week, it just was just
It was great.
mind-boggling for them.
Well, I mean, every situation is meant to be met with discretion. So if you're challenged by that, then obviously do the right thing. But if you can think through it before the event actually happens and see if there's a way you can communicate with the parents prior to, through the help of the school, that's great. And if it doesn't work out, there will be other events that you can do. But as many times as you can, it's important.
In the healthcare area, that's a confidentiality thing also. I mean, people go in, when we do Mary's Kitchen, the people would come to be served for dinner, like 100, 125 people every
Right.
week. Once in a while, the health department will come in and set up blood pressure, AIDS screening and things like that. That, we do not take pictures of that. I mean, that's just confidential too.
Right, right.
So you provide these services, but you just have to let people know that they are available and that we're doing them, and it's part of our ministry, but you really can't go into the, who are the recipients.
Well, sometimes if you have signage,
Generally.
like the Episcopal Charities of Southeast Florida sign, if it was, backpack day or something like that, you might get some of your vestry members or your... Yeah, exactly. Be creative in how you're taking images of the event itself. And then if you have adults and they're in, you don't have to get them with their blood pressure being taken, but maybe they'll stand with somebody from the vestry or the rector or something like that next to a sign or whatever, and they would agree to that. So you just have to ask.